FTX collapse happened, I thought it's actually incredibly positive for the industry. I think churning out the negative energy, especially if you think about this industry long term, is incredibly important. I'll tell you why. There's an opportunity out there that is incredibly large that everyone's ignoring in the space because we've made a set of bad assumptions and we've not set ourselves to be long-term thinkers. If you think about the enterprise and government market for blockchain, the estimate is by 2030, trillions of dollars of value are going to be created. And the question I often get is, what's the through line? Like, why are trillions of dollars of value going to be created? And I think a lot of people don't get this. Blockchain actually can save enterprises and governments tons of cost and create revenue opportunities. Just like cloud computing, which was mostly a cost play, blockchain technology can do both cost and revenue. So let me just give you a couple of examples. Let's take a cost play, for example. Think about mortgages and how banks issue and track mortgages. The reason why there's so much pen and paper in these processes is because you don't know whether something has been tampered with or not. Blockchain is really the first time we've ever had a technology that can prove that something is completely tamper-proof and is digitally unique. So you apply it to, for example, a mortgage process where the average cost to reconcile a mortgage is about 200 bips. You can bring that down to about 15. Now you take every single mortgage around the world, that in itself is tens of billions of dollars that can be saved annually. Let's take a revenue opportunity. If you think about large corporations and governments, they keep billions of dollars of assets, both in accounts payable and accounts receivable. And these are assets that they can get absolutely no liquidity on because proving the provenance of those assets and that they've not been tampered with means you cannot take them off your balance sheet. But now, once you have a tamper-proof technology, you can do both. So this is a massive opportunity that's out there. It's really being ignored, but not by us. Now, the natural question would be, why? If there's a massive trillion-dollar opportunity, why aren't enterprise and governments jumping all over this? The real reason, and we polled, well, Pricewaterhouse and a bunch of companies have done a lot of polls, but we did one with Zogby as well. And we basically asked, and it comes down to a few sets of issues. First of all, the blockchain industry has kind of adopted this shadow kind of tech stack where both we have esoteric programming languages, which brings a lot of key man risk, but also it requires a complete teardown of someone's existing infrastructure. Enterprises and governments do not adopt technology via teardown. They like technology to come in and augment their existing systems. And this is incredibly important. The other really big issue, and I'm not going to read all this out, it's there, so I'll just talk about it at a high level, is the industry hasn't really thought about upgradability and control that enterprises and governments need. And then finally, this is a novel technology. I think 10 to 15 years from now, it's going to be table stakes. But as with any novel technology, you need a Sherpa to take you up the hill. If you think about it, the only reason why Linux exploded was because Red Hat was able to guide people up that hill. And at one point, there were 1% to 2% of server market share. Eventually, Linux, not just Red Hat, but Linux ended up with close to the 90s because there was actual value there, but they solved a false assumption set on how that technology would be consumed. So let's talk about upgradability and why upgradable smart contracts matter and why we spent millions of dollars in engineering to bring this unique feature. The blockchain industry has made one very, very weird assumption, which is people are okay with set it and forget it. That doesn't make any sense. If you think about how software is deployed, you will find bugs all the time. Your customer needs are going to change. Regulatory needs are going to change. And so you have to ensure that your smart contracts are upgradable. Now here, I want to say two things. One, just because you can change the future, it doesn't mean you lose the secret sauce of blockchain. The past is still immutable. And second, the reason why engineering something like this is so expensive, and we thought it was worth the cost, is you really have to think about the governance around this. So one, you might want a smart contract that's absolutely immutable. You might want a smart contract that only the CFO can sign off on. You might want a smart contract that where you need a certain percentage of your customers to sign off on before it changes. The ability to control how your software works is how software has been deployed since software has existed. And the fact that as an industry we think set it and forget it could work really is orthogonal to how the software industry has evolved at large. This is not a value-added feature. This is a feature that, without this feature, an enterprise or a government really would not use a blockchain. When we did our poll, 87% of C-level executives said they want to adopt blockchain technology. 13% said, but they're not going to. And then on the further question, the top reason why was, hey, I don't want to use infrastructure that I cannot upgrade and bug fix. And that makes complete sense. Bugs happen all the time. You know, the only constant in business is change. The other weird thing that's happened in blockchain is we've forced a dichotomy, which is you either go 100% private or you go 100% public. And if you think about that, that really makes no sense. 100% private blockchain means you're never going to be able to take advantage of the immutability of a diverse set of validators. 100% public blockchain means if you have particular data that you need to keep sequestered for whatever, geographical, geopolitical reasons, regulatory reasons, customer preference, you need to have the ability to do that. So how do you solve that? You give people the ability to set up a hybrid blockchain. You set up your own private instance that communicates to the main Casper network. You choose what goes to the public network and what doesn't. And you can have the public network act as a perfect audit trail even for your private network, thereby giving your private network immutability. And that's what enterprises are really excited about. I'd like to give an analogy here as well. If you think about cloud computing, it didn't take off till AWS cloud hybrid installations. There was a long time in the journey of cloud computing where everyone saw the cost play. But the reason that they didn't use the technology was, hey, you're telling me I either need to be 100% on-prem or 100% on cloud. And the moment you were able to solve that, now, along with the cost play, they saw that they were able to actually control the infrastructure. And then cloud computing asymptoted. You saw like 110% CAGR once that happened. The other thing that's really important is blockchain should not be orthogonal to the existing software tech stack. Like blockchain companies are good at building infrastructure, good at building smart contracts. What we're not great at is UX, database integration, ERP integration, et cetera. And instead of like pushing people out, like the IBMs and Accentures, et cetera, you should partner with them. It's a win-win situation. Your blockchain technology gets deployed. They get revenue for businesses and services because they do things that, if you think about any deployment, the smart contract portion of it would probably be 10 to 15%. And I think it goes back to my initial point of us trying to have a shadow economy really is, I think, not the right way to get enterprises and governments on board. Structure can also really unlock blockchain for enterprises. So one thing we did is we structured our company very, very differently. One of the biggest problems, and a reason why a lot of the problems I listed previously have been ignored, is blockchain companies are structured for the extremely short term. Meaning, people get a bunch of tokens, investors buy tokens, and then, they vest in 3 years. So everyone's like, okay, how do I make hay while the sun shines? I've got 3 years. And so you make extremely short-term decisions. This has led to, the FTX blow-up and the obsession with, monkey pictures, yield farms, et cetera, which have mostly been, makes our industry look silly, to be honest. We specifically structure ourselves as an equity company. And the reason is because equity and an employee stock option program are the way you create long-term thinking. Long-term thinking is very, very important because A, enterprises and governments want to know that you're going to stick around and you don't make decisions just to get the announcement, that you'd actually save them costs and generate revenue for them. But secondly, if you think about things like why are batteries so cheap today? Why are processors so cheap today? It's because these companies had extremely low attrition rates. And as a result of having these extremely low attrition rates, they could keep having accumulated knowledge. And accumulated knowledge is the only thing that really creates economic value long term. I had a couple of other slides, but I see I'm out of time. I'm around if anyone wants to speak with me. Happy to speak one-on-one. But thank you, and by and large, I'm really optimistic. I think the industry having a bit of a black eye has taken out a lot of the silliness, if so to speak. And I think the serious players who want to build real revenue and real cost reductions are coming more to the forefront. Want to thank all the organizers here, and also just wanted to say really, really appreciate the region being so progressive on adopting the technology.